Everyone's talking about the Insomniac hack, but I want to discuss an interesting part of the story that has popped up as a result of it. Should media outlets be reporting on this? And two camps have formed. One that believes that this is news that has been made public and all details are fair game for reporting, while others believe that while the story should be reported, details on the hack should not be included. Some large gaming outlets such as IGN, Kotaku, and Polygon have already published stories discussing details that were publicized as a result of this breach, while others, such as GameSpot and VGC, have reported on the hack and release of information, but have declared that they will not divulge details. Kotaku senior reporter Ethan Gach, who wrote the Insomniac article for the site, defended their decision by saying, quote, "Not going to go through another round of hack leak discourse. What's newsworthy is a decision every journalist and newsroom makes for itself. It is not made lightly or in a dumb chase for clicks. If making money was the point, we would have left this business a long time ago." And this was my initial reaction. Any major website is reporting on this purely for clicks they don't need, trading their integrity for ad dollars. But this entire situation is complex, and sometimes we inadvertently simplify it by removing all saturation and discussing it in shades of black and white. It's a byproduct of social media, this inherent need to react to something immediately without sitting alone with those thoughts for a few minutes, and I include myself in that criticism. Because this information is now, for better or worse, completely public. The cap is off the jar, and in a space as tech-savvy as ours, it isn't hard to discover. So many journalists feel like this falls under the purview of their responsibility. This is real, it happened, it's public, and they serve their audience. It isn't their responsibility to work on behalf of Insomniac and Sony to try and mitigate the damage. And there is a truth there that we must all agree with. Journalists aren't supposed to withhold an article out of concern that it will hurt a publisher. We are not mouthpieces for Sony or any other developer, and attempting to ignore publicly available information for the purpose of protecting a company is a bad precedent. My issue with this particular situation is the reality that personal information is a part of this. And if you're reporting on this, you're doing one of two things. You're either reporting it kind of secondhand by talking about information that has risen to the top, or as a journalist on a payroll should do, you're sifting through all the contents of the breach yourself in order to verify the information. But that does involve having to step over personal sensitive information to get in. There's just something off about that. And it's unfortunate that this is the way the world first sees or hears about a game the devs have been working on. But we must all be able to operate within the same reality. And as much as it sucks, this is now out there and it is reality. And contrary to what some may say, it is possible to empathize with that development team while also accepting the reality of the situation and adding value to the conversation. And I think we're all on the same beach and everyone is going to draw their own line in the sand. Speaking for myself, I didn't think twice about openly discussing Xbox's leak earlier this year, and I think that's because it was a mistake made by Xbox making it a genuine leak. I feel the same when it comes to leaks from reputable sources such as Jason Schreier, but I didn't approach GTA 6's leak the same way because it was a hack, not a leak, and it was just early gameplay. So while I discussed the hack itself in a podcast episode and talked generally about what was released, I didn't talk about exact details. But what we all have to understand is these are lines in the sand and not lines in concrete. There should be an ebb and flow. We need to be prepared to adjust our stance on these subjects depending on each situation. For example, I'm not interested in discussing Wolverine gameplay details because it's an early build and I don't think it's an interesting discussion, but I am interested in discussing Insomniac's future purported plans because it represents what I feel is a shift for one of gaming's most creative companies. And just as I did with Xbox's leak, I would like to discuss future PlayStation strategies. And I know firsthand how hurtful it is when a leak happens. And I can't imagine how much worse it feels when it leaks as a result of a criminal act. Because as much as I feel for those developers who have had their work laid bare, we as journalists have a responsibility, and helping publishers mitigate PR damage is not part of that responsibility. It sets a dangerous precedent, and I don't think you trust a journalist who hid a story because they felt it could hurt a publisher's bottom line or marketing rollout. For example, I think Jeff Keighley is a great guy. I've met him a few times and I have a lot of respect for him, but I also feel like it's my responsibility to point out inconsistencies in his messaging like I did in my latest video. That video was created to discuss and inform, not to protect the Game Awards, because I don't serve the Game Awards. And there are parts of this that we should all be able to agree on. It is in poor taste to point people towards how to find this information. And of course, we need to take great care not to share sensitive information. And I think each of us is going to handle navigating this conversation differently. And there's something kind of healthy about that. This is a complex situation and it exists on a spectrum. We need to move away from discussing moments like this without nuance and placing people into one of two buckets. Because I'm only interested in adding or providing value to my viewers and listeners, and I am more than capable enough to do just that while also remaining respectful to the work of the developers. And I think Jeff Grubb put it way better than I could. I don't work for the developer, but that doesn't mean I don't feel for them. I do believe that I work for the audience, but that doesn't mean that I owe them everything. Not going to bury my head in the sand, but I'll be selective about how we talk about this. Like, subscribe, and comment down below how you feel about this subject. Thanks for watching.